Hello, I'm Evan Hill of Hill People Gear. I'm here today to show you a little bit about the points of usage for our Shepherd stove, which is our lightweight backpacking wood stove. The first thing that I'd like to point out is that this case is asymmetrical. It's narrower here than here, and in fact it's only tapered on one side. That's because when the stove is folded, it has the same properties. This case is a nice tight fit to protect the stove. It's made out of 1000 denier cordura, which is one of the few places that we use this weight of cordura on our products. The way to remember which way the stove goes into the case is that the door side, which is the front side, goes on the front side, which is where the label is. The next thing we need to talk about is the belly. This is a very lightweight piece of stainless to save weight. The entire stove, the production version, is 2 pounds 15 ounces minus the case. So this is a very lightweight belly. It functions just fine in the field. The thing that you really have to be careful about is, before it's burned in, you have to take great care. I would urge you not to set this stove up until you're ready to actually give it a good burn to give some toughness to this belly. Particularly, the tongue and groove section of the belly gets a lot tougher once you burn it in. It makes it easier to slide into the tongue and groove on the stove, and it also resists kinking, which can be a problem before it's burned in. So I'm working here with a belly that hasn't been burned in. You're going to see me taking great care. I want you to pay attention to where I'm putting my fingers, how I'm putting it together, to be really careful with this. Once it's burned in, you don't have to take as much care with it. But if you start with the way I'm doing it now and use this as your baseline, you're going to be just fine. For assembly, you want the door facing you, like so. So you can see right into this tongue and groove. Okay? Next, I'm going to do the Moses thing here, and then roll it like this, facing away from me. Okay? I get started seating this in the groove, and I slide it a little ways down. Now what I'm really being careful of, it's going to want to ride up out of the groove a little bit, like this, and when I'm putting this on, I have to be very careful about that not happening. Now, with this setup, it's working just fine for me to push down from on top. Sometimes maybe it gets dirty and doesn't work as well. What's a little bit more reliable is to reach underneath like this. I'm pushing in to keep this seated firmly in the groove and pulling down until I get to the bottom. Then I'm going to seat it the final way, and you're going to have to push in a little bit to make sure that this is firmly seated in the band on the front or on the back that holds it in. Then I'm going to do the same thing here. Again, watch my fingers, pushing in to make sure that we clear. And I'll probably have to just work outward like this and get it to seat. Okay, done. We're seated, we're good. And you've probably seen this on other videos, but you're going to go like this, figure out which one of these to put it in, and seat it. Now, a couple things about this that I want to be real clear about. This boomer style of arrangement can generate a tremendous amount of torque on the front and the back here. You don't actually need to reef it down that hard at all. All you're doing is keeping the front and back together, because the load bearing is all being done by these inserts in the front and the back that are actually holding the belly in place. So this is just a tensioner. This doesn't really need to do anything more. The appropriate slot to put it on here is going to be one of the first 3. And it just depends on kind of assembly variances which one you're going to use. In this case, I'm using the second one that feels nice and taut without camming in too much. If you generate too much torque like this, you're going to get some warping right in here. Particularly as you burn, you're going to get some divots there. It's cosmetic, doesn't affect the burning, it doesn't look good, it works just fine. If you're careful and don't over torque, you shouldn't have any of that problem. So that's that. Couple notes. In the backcountry, I always use leather gloves, and I always carry a Leatherman. This has holes for putting a wire loop on. I tried the wire loop, I didn't like it. Personally, I prefer to just use pliers or wear leather gloves, but it does have wire loop or holes for a wire loop if you want to put that on. It's plumbed for a 4-inch pipe. This ring is integral to the stovetop. In addition to being a nice simple design, it also gives a lot of extra strength to this stovetop to have this pressed into it here. As far as stovepipes are concerned, this is designed to work with a 4-inch stovepipe. It's plumbed for that. If you have a 4-inch stovepipe that you want to use, good. If you have a 3-inch that you want to use, you can fab up or buy from the hardware store a 4-inch to 3-inch adapter. One that we've been using is this galvanized tin. It's kind of heavy. It does work well, where it sets over that 4-inch and the 3-inch slots over that. Maybe you want to use a 3-inch to save weight. It's readily available. Maybe you already have one, but that's an option. A word on that. There's a really nice looking aluminum 4-inch to 3-inch adapter used for dryer venting. You don't want that. You will melt it if you try to use that. This is the galvanized tin one. Be careful when you first burn. It's going to generate some fumes. But that's an option for you if you want to use a 3-inch pipe on this. So taking it down, particularly before you burned it in, again, this is like a danger time until you burn this belly in. Taking it down is going to be the reverse process. One other point on this. If you push this down so it's contacting the wire, you might have a hard time getting your loop, your ring up over it. Push it down past the wire. Then it gets really narrow, no problem. Again, you want the door facing you. Put it up on end. Flop the door over the top. This is the process in reverse. Now again, if you haven't burned it in, something that you may well be fighting with here is that the belly has wanted to climb up out of the grooves a little bit and is actually cammed against the top. There's a couple ways to fight that. First of all, you can reach inside and just pull the whole thing that way to reseat it in the grooves. If you have any trouble getting this out, that's what you need to do first. Don't try to force it. But what I'm going to do, I'm going to just reach in and push this like this to free that from that slot initially. And again, pushing and pulling. And then for this, I definitely like to start at the bottom because I can put my fingers on the inside and keep that tight against the sidewall so it's seated properly in the tongue and groove. And bring it all the way out like this. You want to keep two hands on it. You don't want to do one side and the other, and then the other, because you might get a kink in it this way. Again, prior to burning in. That's all there is to that. Now, putting this back in the case, let's remember that we're going to use the front to the front. What I like to do is just put it like this, seat it over, okay, that's done. For this, I like to keep this around my tent pole. So typically I will start with my tent poles, roll up my stovepipe, and roll this up around the stovepipe finally. That leaves this kind of a larger gauge so it doesn't want to curl in so much when I'm putting it into the stove. You know, if you're not doing it around the tent pipes, don't get too small with it, because remember that it's going to have to open back up and fit into that belly. And just go like so. little strap. We are good to go. So that's it for points of usage on the Hill People Gear Shepherd Stove.